Sorry.
How's life?
Life is okay. How about for yourself?
Same. No, well, I'm in Paris,
Okay.
so it's hot here.
Super hot here. I'm in New Jersey right now.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be crazy there this week, right?
It is. And of course, I got three outdoor gigs, right? That's
No way.
yeah. That's what are you gonna do?
Oh my God. Bring water.
Yes, definitely. All right, cool, man. So we can get into it. Thanks for doing this. I'm glad we finally connected. It's good to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's I guess if we could, let's start with the record.
Sure.
Because it's first of all, I love it. It's fantastic, and congratulations. It's a really great record.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
And of course, we're talking about Songs of Innocence. So, if you could, let me know about sort of the album concept, how it came about.
Well, this album is the first release of this new record label that I'm starting called Emergence Music Productions, EMP for short. And it's kind of a production company. We've got big plans to do a lot of video content and different things. But the impetus for this label, I'm just giving you this background for the record. The impetus for the label was that I did get a Copeland grant to release another record that's coming out very soon, which I can tell you about later. But then I said instead of just releasing this one-off thing, because that was the grant. The grant was to release it on my own. I said I'd like to get a production company going and have that as a sort of vehicle for, amongst other things, releasing the many things that I have in my catalog that have not are not available to the public.
Okay.
So Songs of Innocence was part of was originally part of a project that I recorded called Book of Dreams for Nouvelle Records. And so we recorded this project just before COVID in 2019, about 6 months before the crazy COVIDness. And and we recorded it with and we recorded it with for Nouvelle Records, actually, which was a record label that did only albums. I don't know if you know about them.
Yeah, I am somewhat. Yeah, they only release LPs, right?
Exactly. They only release LPs, and not only that, but they kind of only release them in a series collection.
Okay.
So you subscribe to their yearly subscription, and you get sent 5 albums, of which this is one.
Hmm. Okay.
So so this is great. I was super happy. I think they're picking back up again. I'm not really quite sure what their status is now, but I thought it was a great idea. I still do. But the thing is that this restricted your audience, people that didn't have a record player or whatever, or just were listening digital, which, as you know, is the great majority of people these days did not have access to this music. So I thought about, so actually this album is coming from that session from 2019.
Okay.
Now, the what this has is a slightly is first of all less material. Second of all, different takes of some similar tracks, and on that session, I recorded stuff on tenor and on soprano,
Okay.
and so my background is like I'm a tenor player.
Hmm.
I grew up playing tenor, like in clubs and stuff when I was in high school and college. And when I met Kevin, that's what we were doing, and we did that together throughout my college years and his briefer stint in college.
Right.
Like so many of the best people, he did not finish college.
Mhm.
So so but I had not been playing tenor as much anymore because I was playing with string quartet. I was sort of combining jazz instruments and string quartet, and for that a lighter sound was better. So I was just started playing soprano more and more, and like lately, all the kind of chops, whatever chops I had, because I was really transcribing Train and Brecker and Sonny and Johan, and like that was totally my thing in college. But I
Yeah.
kind of like, through a process of not dealing with that, I just kind of let it slide. So if you asked me to sound like Johan right now, it wouldn't go well.
Okay.
And I could say that that was true even as early as like the mid 90s. I just
Mhm.
kind of was like, I was really focusing on my own crazy music already at that time. but I've let that go. But I still can play tunes. And when we recorded this record, Kevin and I played some standards, but it was kind of deep because we've had a long relationship and it was intense.
Hmm.
And so, but whereas the soprano tunes were kind of technical, weirdly, I have more of a technique on soprano, or at least I have a technique for my music. So the soprano has a kind of more ebullient kind of equality, and it's happy. And the tenor is more like, I think of it as like sunny soprano and tragic tenor. And I felt like these two like vibes were not meshing in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
original record that we released for Nouvelle. So I decided to make a separation, and I want, so this album is like represents for me the really best of the best of what we recorded for Nouvelle on soprano for me. Um, and since it's kind of got a sunny and upbeat quality, I called it Songs of Innocence. And then later in the year, we're going to release a pendant album actually, which is only tenor, kind of
Okay.
down tempo stuff, and that's going to be called Songs of Experience.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there's like a so this is part of a twin. This is part of like another twin project. But so that's how this came to be, and I'm really proud of this project because I do feel like it hangs together super well, and I feel like I'm proud of all the tunes, and the playing is great. But Kevin and Satoshi sound killing, and
Yeah.
so I'm super happy with it.
Yeah. No, awesome. So you mentioned a little bit your connection with Kevin, but could you talk about your connection with both the musicians, how you met them, and how long you've been playing with them?
Absolutely. I met Kevin in 19, I want to say 86, because we were on the high school jazz circuit both. And there was a competition. There was like presidential arts award competition happening down in Miami, and that's where we met. And Kevin at that time was like an unbelievable. He sounded so great. I mean, anyone who heard him in his teens was just like, it was unbelievable how. I mean, he sounded like totally like Herbie ish, but like better in a way somehow. I mean, with respect to Herbie, but like, man, it was incredible to listen to him, and his talent was so innate, like
Mhm.
he listened and he just like somehow translated it into his fingers in this incredibly natural way. But he let me, like a lot of those guys, because I grew up with him, and then Bill Stewart and Scott Colley, and a lot of those guys were part of that scene in the late '80s in New York, and they kept me around. I wasn't really like, these guys were on such an incredible level. I wouldn't say I was on that high of a level. In fact, I have a tape of me, Colley, Bill Stewart, and Kevin playing standards
Hmm.
from like 1990 or something, 1989, and these guys are just like insane, and I sound like not as good as they do, let's just say, but but they kept me around because I had crazy ideas, you know what I mean, and I would write tunes that were tricky and like quite difficult to play, thanks to my sort of investigation of post Schoenbergian serialism, like Elliot Carter, Milton Babbitt, and all those guys. So Kevin and I developed that kind of relationship. He was always the one that swung so hard and was so killing, and I was always the one that was trying to push the limits, had different ideas, was trying to incorporate things from set theory, all kinds of stuff.
So you just say like you approach things with a compositional kind of framework generally, or
I did, yes, yes, yes. I was always more the like sort of heady thinker, and these guys were the beasts.
right,
They
right.
just they just could freaking play, man. It was like they
I'm
could
back.
throw down in the moment. But in terms of like a longer scale thing, for some reason, that was more what I gravitated towards. And I even wrote, for Kevin, a very long piano concerto.
Oh wow.
He didn't. It was actually Ethan Iverson who wound up playing it, because at this time I was writing very difficult music, and Kevin like sort of took time out of his schedule to practice it, but he then got injured practicing part of it, and
Oh,
and I was like, oh man, that's so not cool, and he bowed out, and then Ethan wound up. I wound up fixing the piece and making it easier, and then Ethan came and played it.
oh, what's the name of that work? Is that available?
It's my first piano concerto, which is another thing that's never seen the light of day. I have a live recording of it, but if you want to go listen to it, good luck. You can't. I mean, I could put it all up on YouTube, but I want to. These are some of the things that I would like to have out there in the public that people can hear. I'm very proud of these pieces.
Sure. And now with your own sort of it's a production company, I guess, right?
That's how I'm thinking of it, because we want to go way beyond just putting out album. It's not just like going to be a record label. We're going to put out a lot of different things.
And is it only geared towards your music, or are you going to be incorporating other artists?
Well, at the beginning, it's like kind of geared towards my music, but my vision for it is to totally expand it and have it and have it definitely incorporate other artists. I'd love to work with. I have a strong production idea, and I'd love to work with some, interesting musicians in contexts that they wouldn't otherwise have been found in. So I'm my long term vision is to go beyond that and expand it and include a lot of other people.
Yeah, cool. And now, in terms of Satoshi, the drummer,
Yeah. Oh
what was
yeah.
your connection there?
Oh yeah. No problem. So to Satoshi, like, by the way, these guys are both like super dear to me. We don't always see each other all the time, but they're like my brothers. And Satoshi is like, I met him in 1990 because I was looking for a drummer for someone who was doing something a little bit different for this ensemble I was forming with Ben Monder and Satoshi Takeishi. And Stomu Takeishi, his brother who plays the bass.
Right. Hmm.
Um, and so actually Stomu introduced me to Satoshi, and he came in with like a really hip, like he was sitting down and he played on like this set that was kind of not a set, with taiko drums and Colombian percussion, and it was incredible from the beginning. So Satoshi went on to like play with me on many projects. In fact, anytime I can get him involved on anything, I do. And he played on those concertos. Both the concertos that I wrote. Every time I have a classical and jazz project, I try to sort of horn him in there. So because he's got a great feel and he understands the jazz thing, but he
Yes.
can also blend with strings, and he has the requisite soft, which is so hard to find. Not that many players, not that many drummers can play to the level of like string players. The
Sure.
the volume is really different.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I could tell, like, just the dynamic throughout the record, really, the three of you, the dynamics are, really well situated.
oh, thanks, man. Yeah. He's an incredibly he's a wonderfully sensitive, supportive musician who's got a fantastic time and great groove and amazing ideas and a great sound. I mean, I love this guy, you know. So
He's-
so so yeah, so we've known each other for 35 years.
oh, wow. Yeah, his playing's incredible. And then, like, what was the decision? I get nervous because I'm a bass player, right? So when I see a record with no bass, I get a little nervous. But
Oh,
what was the decision for no bass on it? I,
well,
I
it
didn't miss
was. It's funny. It wasn't. I thought you played guitar because you have a million guitars.
I do that as well, but primarily I'm a bass player.
Oh. Well, my apologies. Look,
No, no, there it is.
it's it wasn't for me. I think for me and for Satoshi, it's different, because for me it wasn't like a subtraction, but an addition, because a lot of these pieces had been conceived for just piano and saxophone,
Right.
and so I was like, oh, let's add in Sato.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't like, oh, let's get rid of bass. It's really bothering me. That had nothing to do with it. It's just the way the pieces are. Some of the pieces were even originally written for classical players.
Hmm.
So the frequency range was mostly filled to begin with. So having Satoshi there just gives it propulsive drive without interfering with the frequency range or anything like that. So that's how it kind of started. Um, I don't have that, like you. I'm all about the bass, and so I don't have like that much of a culture of. I don't even know the very famous no bass ensembles of our time. I
Right.
say I say that with shame. I mean, not everyone can know everything, but like I just haven't checked out that Frizzell Lovano motion stuff yet. It's on my list, and I will. But it's this. So, but whereas Satoshi's favorite drummer is Paul Motion,
You could kind
so
of
he
get that.
was so he was he was super happy to not have a bass, and he didn't complain.
Yeah.
And later we talked about it, and I realized that was kind of where he was coming from. But
Hmm. Yeah, it wasn't missed. I mean, it definitely
oh, really?
functions
You
well without it, but it was, I was interested to wonder if it was you were influenced by the Frizzell recordings or anything like that.
Not yet. I look forward to being influenced by them, though.
Yeah.
I hear they're great.
They're good. Yeah, really great. Awesome. So, I guess if we could, well, I'm a little curious about the recording process too. All recorded all together. How did this work out?
Yeah, we recorded at East Side Sound, and the music's difficult. We recorded it together. Well, we recorded in individual rooms so we could have separation.
Sure.
This was it was also Elon's kind of show on the production. Elon Mailer, who's the producer for Nouvelle.
Mm,
It was his show, and we just went along with it. I mean, but I was very happy with the engineer, a guy named Mark Urselli, who then came back and remastered the tracks himself, and I think who did a fantastic job. They're really well mastered, and and so we played all in. It was we were all isolated. Like I was in a booth. We could have easily, a lot of times I push for live recording.
sure.
And the way I've kind of my training is so between jazz and classical, even down to production. So sometimes what I like to do is just have everyone in the room live, and then I maybe do a lot of edits, but I can
Right.
do the edits to all three of the instruments at once. It's like not a problem.
Mm,
But jazz musicians are more used to having everyone in their room, and of course it does give you some flexibility on the back end for mixing and all that kind of stuff. So that's how we did it.
sure. Yeah. Because these are tough tunes. I mean, a lot of
Right.
times it'll changes the odd times. And
Yeah.
not I don't even like that term odd, but different time changes. You know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's right. The tunes have some some metric. Yeah, I agree with you. Odd time signatures isn't really the idea. I mean, on 60 Morningside, it does happen to be in like 11,
okay.
but I mean, it's really like a bar of five and then a bar of like four dotted eighth notes if you want.
Mhm.
But torsion has a technique that I use a lot, which I think of like narrative meter, where the meter follows the melody rather than being like set and fixed. And so in torsion, there's a kind of backbone of a 9/8 thing, but it comes out of it in and out of it, particularly in the bridge because the melody suggests that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I like just have the meters follow the melody. This definitely posed some difficulties, particularly for Kevin. With Satoshi, we did some very, very, very sophisticated music compared to which this is like super mellow. We did our first record that we did with Ben Monder and his brother Stoma was called Explosion,
Okay.
and that had very extravagant stuff like "Do not try this at home" kind of things. And by that I mean like instead of being in 11, we would be in four, but the inner subdivision of the beat would change between 11s and sevens and fives and nines, and you had to be really accurate within that.
Mhm.
So compared to that, Satoshi is like this stuff for him is like not as challenging. In the case of Kevin's also a very good reader actually. But this music, like you said, it has so many twists and turns that for him, and also there's a lot of written stuff on the piano because a lot of it was basically was started as a classical pieces. So it's not just like heads changes, like a few hits. It's not like nothing like that. It's all like written. It's very pagey. So
Mhm.
for him, that poses more of a problem. But I mean, he put in the work, and what's great is he really plays the tunes like he really plays the song no matter
Yeah.
what, even though he's trying to navigate this stuff, and he often always comes up with something interesting and original to play and a great addition to the piece.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's great. Like it sounds very organic for sure. And the one thing I wanted to ask, like, there also seems to be sort of this sort of pop sensibility as well.
Yeah.
So is that something that you consciously do, or is it just part of what you've listened to in the past? How does that kind of work in?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I write, I don't put too many restrictions on myself, and then I judge. Writing is a kind of judgment-free experience for me because a lot of my life has landed on the cutting room floor anyway.
Sure.
So, I can always later be like, what was I thinking, etc. And that's happened frequently, but like I definitely you can tell I grew up in the 70s, I think, listening to this music. And some of the stuff, I definitely the thing is, I have a very kind of sophisticated way of thinking, and I'm very, very studied. in very complex kinds of music. So as a result of that, for me, a challenge is to be simple, is to chill the fuck out, you know? And so anything I can do that does that, I'm really happy with, like Crow or Dove is the sample one because it's almost like it's on the edge, of it rides the edge of being like quite pop. I think the instrumentation saves it to some degree from being too sort of like you know, I dislike this word also, but cheesy. I'd like to think, but and also there's kind of an honesty to the expression. Like I none of that pop stuff is something that I throw out there in an ironic way. That's something that's deep into my like I listen to that music and it's part of my who I am and so and so I'm like cool when it comes out. So
Yeah, what's kind of cool about the record for me, part of it was that it's got this level of sophistication, certainly, and this great interaction and playing. But if you were not a jazz aficionado or even a classical, fan, it's still very accessible. Like I think I could play this for anybody, and they can appreciate it. Just
that's cool. Yeah, of course,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I mean, really, I'm, I grew up in jazz, but I don't live there that much these days. Just similar to the U.S. In fact, I'm, I'm a little bit more regretful when I'm not in New York. But like in terms of jazz, like there's a lot of people who have a lot of technique.
yeah, sure.
It's not as I don't think it's as meaningful. If I can play simple and slow, I'm very, very much more happy with that than if I can play a million bajillion gajillion notes.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Yeah, that's so true. So and then there's an element like these titles, I guess, are based on poetry, right? William Blake's poems. Is that how it works?
No, no, they're not actually, not at all.
Oh,
The William Blake reference, and people are, I mean, William Blake reference came ex post facto, man. I
oh,
was
okay.
like, trying to like, and the reason that it did, I'll tell you about the titles, but like the reason that it came ex post facto is like I'm always trying to make people understand. There's a sense with that if you have like some skills and then you play simple, that you're doing it for sort of like commercial reasons, or I mean, I don't even know what that means, but the urge that the attachment, the my relationship to simplicity and how much I sort of hold that as a high ideal is it's hard to explain. It's an aesthetic choice that I'm making that I think makes my music speak to more people. So I mean, maybe in that sense, it is a commercial decision, but like it's one it's an aesthetic decision, man. I'm not doing it for other reasons than that I think that this is the best music I can produce. And so I always try to explain myself to people because it's hard to bring this across. And so one thing that I was thinking about when I was thinking about these two albums I was mentioning that I did was the Blake, the Songs of Innocence and the Songs of Experience. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool because William Blake was a great poet. He was a rebel, as I've had my rebel moments myself, and he really prized simplicity, and that's what he was going for in the Songs of Innocence. So I was like, oh, let me. So I was like, there's something about what he does and that I do that relates. So that's why I titled the records this way. However, that was after the music got recorded, so I wasn't like, oh, let me do something in tribute to William Blake. That might be. I don't know if that's out of bounds, but that's just how it evolved. What's hilarious is a lot of the reviews have been like, "Oh, I hear how this poem is related to." I do know the Blake poems, and I like how people are making sort of connections between the poems and the music. I think it's great. I like a lot of the poems, but the titles of the tunes have nothing to do with Blake's poetry. In fact, Crow or Dove is a reference to Shakespeare.
Okay.
That's from a Shakespeare sonnet.
All right.
Um, and 60 Morningside is just this place where I used to hang out and watch the sunrise when I woke up really early in like the early 90s when I was writing a ton of music because I used to wake up like 5:30 to write music.
Right.
And sometimes like when there was an incredible sunrise, it was like, well, should I get right into it or should I just jump watch the sunrise first?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that was an internal debate. So yeah.
Okay. So I mean, you have I guess that there's 5 tracks on here. So if we don't mind talking about them, because we can get through them. 60
Yeah.
Minutes, I talked about a little bit already, the title you just mentioned.
Hmm.
Um, could you talk about maybe just the approach to that particular piece, the
Sure.
writing
Yeah.
process?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's on the technical side, it is in 11 with this kind of 5+6 or 5+4, really 5+4 dotted quarter note feel, but it's kind of like it's kind of anchored by this very basic bass line, right? Um, and that the piano plays, and has a very straight ahead, like I think you would say, pop oriented melody. Now, now some of these tunes have a dark side, and after we play this melody for a while, there's like a soprano solo. That's a little bit on the more intense side, with a written accompaniment underneath, and then Kevin plays. Kevin blows over the form in a way that kind of brings it back into the atmosphere of the sunniness and the innocence.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really like how there's this like established groove, and like this the soprano kind of soars over the top of it.
Yeah,
It's a cool dynamic. And then Crow or Dove, to me, very atmospheric, almost contemplative when I listen to it. And again,
totally.
you mentioned that somewhat poppy sort of melody. I mean, it seems like um, you're really using space very well within that piece.
Thanks. Yeah, 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 absolutely. Because there's a moment where we all play whole notes, and it's at a slow tempo, right? So it's like dun dun dun, and I never give an indication of where the whole notes. I'm like, guys, count and use your telepathy.
Mm.
And we just count and use telepathy, and it's just like these dead whole notes. Dun 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 dun, and then it builds back into the tune. But it's so yeah, space is really important. I'm glad you raised that. Space is really important in that tune.
Yeah, no, it's great because you're like sort of has this waiting, like I said, a searching kind of quality almost.
Totally.
I love tunes like that where you're just kind of there. That space is so effective, you know.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, yeah, it really hit. So wedding song, and then all of a sudden, we get the hand claps. We're into wedding song, much more spirited. Um, it
Yeah.
like it has some world influence, maybe some flamenco. I couldn't really tell,
We tried to access the flamenco influence. It's hard to. It's the palmas is a little bit tricky, but we got through it with Satoshi. Yeah, that one's really fun, and I mean that's the kind of thing that he just eats up, man. He is all over that kind of a that's like a six kind of a groove. Actually, so this I mean just because we're doing a podcast, I'll give you. So that piece is in what I like to think of as 5+7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And all the clever jazz musicians are like, oh yeah, but I just feel this in three. You
all
know,
right.
5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I mean, feeling the big beats. This is what they tell you to do.
Mm.
But but I was like, no, don't feel the big beats. Feel the 5+7, because I wanted to have that feel. I feel like if in this case, in this piece, if you feel the three or you feel the four, and I mean we play around with it to some degree anyway. But if you go into that feel, then it becomes a little bit more generic. Whereas if you really keep in the five and the seven, it has a more unique rhythmic profile.
Interesting. So why the name wedding song?
Well, this because, like you said, it's like ebullient and fun, and I think I wrote it around the time. This song, not all these tunes are that recent. This one dates back from when I was getting married, I think, which was like 2014. Is that right? No, 2013. 2013 it would have been. Oh, I got married twice,
Okay.
but to the same woman, fortunately. Because in France, because my wife is French, and in France that's how they do it. You have like a
Oh wow.
civil and then a religious marriage if you want.
Okay.
And so we did one like in 2011 and one in 2013.
Okay, I got you.
Anyway, I was writing. It's a long story. I mean, I guess that's why we have the long link. But in fact, this piece was originally written for organ, for pipe organ.
Oh wow. Can't even think of that.
and and uh and so I then we started playing it quickly in different formations, but yeah, so I think it was that excitement because marriage is an act of optimism, you know. Are you married?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, however it rolls, you have high hopes. Otherwise, you wouldn't be getting married in the first place. You know what I mean? So I think that tune is intended to convey that kind of like optimistic feeling of like, here we go into the future. This is going to be amazing.
Right, right. Yeah. And it's, part of the you keep talking about the rhythmic elements of it and the count. For me, the first time I listened to the EP or the record, I was so involved with trying to count and trying to figure out the time
Oh,
signature.
I'm sorry.
No, no, no. That's just because I'm a musician, and
I,
I'm trying to learn it from a technical level. And I was like, why am I had to take a step back almost and go, I'm going to listen to this again, but I'm just going to enjoy it. Like,
yeah,
and
yeah. Well, that's very funny that you say that because whenever I'm in a jazz club and I have this habit when I'm in a jazz club and I hear something in some odd meter, I automatically my fingers get counting because I
Hmm.
have a way of like sort of understanding the meters using my fingers.
Oh, okay.
And so but usually that is usually an indication that the music itself isn't carrying you and you need to think about that aspect of it. So yeah, it's ideally I think people don't even notice and people don't care. And ideally I just write in four. It's fine. I can do everything and everything is possible in four. You don't have to depart from that. For me, I don't feel like I have to depart from that to sort of like impart my musical message. But I don't know. It's just I'm so into my brain. Those things come so naturally to me. That's what happens. You know.
Right. It wasn't like a distraction. I don't want you to think that, you know, there, like there are some bands, even like in the progressive rock genre, like it's their times changes are just so organic, and there's others that sound very forced. This
Right.
didn't sound like you were like actively like I'm going to write this song on 11 and then move to 7, and it didn't have
No.
that, and
No. No.
that's what fucked me up because I was just like, it, I don't even know if it isn't it's like it's just kind of so.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. No, 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 that's the ideal. That's definitely what I'm striving for is that it's not something that it's just something that has kind of an off-kilter atmosphere that keeps you on your toes and you're not quite sure what's coming next. Maybe it's kind of like that at best.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of a master class I did. You know the Treelock Gertu by any chance?
Of course, yeah, of course.
And it was like a Berkeley thing. And some student asked, like, "How do you count?" And he got so upset with this, like he just couldn't understand that, like that's a question. Like this is it's just he's like that's just what I do. And we went to Takademi Takada, and he started singing the syllables. Um,
Right. Wow, that's so funny. Yeah, because for them it's so organic because they've been doing it at a young age.
right, right. It's
That's
just part of
hilarious.
the culture, yeah. Cool. So moving to Dreamscape, like this one, I felt what I liked about this was like it's this very interesting contrast of this like calmness, and then you have like almost brooding, and then all of a sudden you have this like heavy accents,
Yes.
and then again with that with the soprano, which works so well, floating above all this. It really
Exactly.
has a dream kind of a quality to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's like what we're going for. And that one again is in such a weird meter. It's actually what is it? Ba-do-be-do-dum, ba-do-be-do-dim-dim, ba-do-be-do-dum. I don't even again actually in this case I'd have to just think a little bit about the number, but also you can also think about it as that's a pickup, that thing, ba-do-be-do-dim. I'm just talking technically here, but like but you can actually hear it, which I don't even hear it that way. So there are kind of multiple ways of hearing it, which I find that's very cool because it's like a dream in that way. Like you don't really know what's going on and you're completely disoriented, and then these things come out, bing, bong, bong, and the sopranos floating around and stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and then the album closes with Torsion again. So
Yeah.
now you go back to this like more I don't want to say aggressive, but more up tempo-y. Uh,
Yes.
and it was and it sounds like to me there's some Middle Eastern elements to the melodies. It's just the scales that you're using, or
Yeah, well, I don't think that that's reflected in the harmony, but you're not wrong, actually. It wasn't. I don't, I don't know what the impetus for that melody was. I wrote that originally. That was written for Ben Monder and Miranda Cookson.
Oh, yeah.
Because Miranda Cookson's a great violinist and she's a classical player, and I love her. And we were trying to get some stuff going, and I was like, oh, you should play with Ben. And so I wrote some stuff for Ben, and I wrote some stuff for Miranda. But like where those melodies came from, I don't think there was an like any intention to be like particularly Middle Eastern in that situation. It just kind of came out the way it did, because it's also got the kind of major scale changes. Like
Mhm.
they're just, it kind of oscillates between two kind of major seventh E sounds,
Right.
which is not that Middle Eastern, right?
Absolutely. No, I think it was more like the shape of the melodic line for me.
Totally, you're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, now that I think of it,
Right.
it
Maybe
and
not, maybe Hungarian. I don't know. It's almost there was a little bit of Bartok almost in there. It was cool. It's cool.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I accept all those um, guilty as charged on accounts.
But the programming of the record's great. Like I like how you kind of put the two sort of slower songs in between. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it works out really well. So definitely, I would employ the listeners to take a listen, since we've talked about all the. It's all of like 30 minutes, right? 32
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, it's about 30 minutes, yeah.
Cool. Now, if Patrick, if I could just get some, if I can go back and get some background on just yourself,
Yeah.
because I'm not sure everyone's familiar. So talk about sort of, if you could, your upbringing and how you came to get into music.
Oh, sure. Well, going way back, my brother, I have an older brother who was a piano prodigy. So
Hmm.
he was 3 years older than me, but he's one of those, he was exceptionally talented. He had a kind of a gift for piano. And so he was doing recitals when he was like 7 or 8 or 9, like playing Beethoven and Bach and Chopin and stuff.
Sure.
And still to this day, you put him in front of a piano, my brother. He never was be a professional musician, but if you put him in front of a piano, he can like play Beethoven, Bach, Brahms, Chopin, like for hours, just rattling it off and talking about it from a theoretical perspective as well, which was super hip. So I've always been felt a sense of competition with him, but I was not allowed when I was younger to play piano because that was his domain. So
Oh,
I
okay.
chose woodwinds, and a friend of mine played clarinet. I tried clarinet. But then it was somehow discovered that I had kind of talent for improvisation. But things really got more serious when I went to high school, because or when I went to junior high school, because I had grown up in Westchester, Mount Vernon, New York.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
but for high school, we moved to West Hartford, Connecticut for my high school years. And so I went to the public school there, which is called Hall High School, which has a very well-known high school jazz program. And it was very competitive. We did all the national competitions, and went to we toured Europe like 3 times when I was in high school for like 3 weeks each. It was the whole thing. And that was really competitive, and so that's when I really started getting into playing jazz. And then it was there that I met local musicians who turned me on to like progressively, like people like Sonny and Bird, obviously, and Train, and like all that kind of culture, which I got really, really, really heavily into in high school, and that was my thing. And I was, as I mentioned earlier in connection with Kevin, I was kind of on the national high school circuit as a it was kind of my high, my
Mhm.
my career high as a jazz saxophonist, I would have to say. It's been a
Right.
bit downhill ever since. But anyway, I was going around doing all the conferences and stuff like that, and I won those downbeat awards and stuff like that. And then I went to as I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to go to New York to play. But my parents were like, "Well, you have the grades," and I did. School was easy, and I went to Columbia.
Right.
Um, but I still wound up playing in the scene a lot. But at Columbia, I got very exposed to like contemporary music, which I was fascinated with. Like really something about Elliott Carter and Milton Babbitt and Donald Martino and Mario Davidovsky, that music really, really exerted a pull on me for whatever reason. And I got very interested in studying it, and I tried to lift those ideas and put them into the jazz context. And that's when I was developing bands. Like I had this band with Kevin and Larry Grenadier, and Tom Rainey played drums.
Okay.
And we did an album that way later got released as Shores Against Silence. One of the things about me is that a lot of times things get released out of order. Like I'll make the music and it gets released another time. And even Songs of Innocence is an example of that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but but um, but so then I really went into sort of rhythmic and pointillistic hyperspace with this group that I mentioned with Ben Monder and Stomo and Satoshi. We did several records. Um, I I played with that band a lot, like at the Knitting Factory, although I didn't know why, because I didn't think of it as really particularly avant-garde, but it was received that way.
Right.
And so I had to like kind of go to places like that. And at some point I was so enthusiastic and passionate about this music, but at some point I realized that I was leaving people behind. Because even like we would play concerts, this music was very difficult. So we would rehearse for months, sometimes even just with pencils, no instruments at the whole entire rehearsal, just tapping out the rhythms.
Oh, wow.
And then we would go to play the gigs and they'd be fucked up. Like we didn't have the tools that kids have these now. Like we didn't really have the kids get a really strong rhythmic background, and there's the Indian music influence. This was kind of, we were jazz musicians making this stuff up from scratch. Ben didn't know from any of this stuff. He was, in his kind of jazz thing.
Mhm.
And so we were as a result, it was a little rough around the edges, but I could see that the musicians, even in the crowd, when I would play at the Knitting Factory, they didn't know. They couldn't tell whether it was a good performance or it wasn't.
Right, right.
I was like, well, something's off here. And it kind of came to a head. We did a series of weekends at the Guggenheim
Okay.
uh, in the late 90s. And we were playing in this exhibition that was an exhibition on abstraction in the 20th century. I was like, this is great. My music, they're going to understand. It's going to make total sense. And so, but man, it was flying over people's heads. You could tell. And in the middle, they were like, hey, could you guys play more standards and shit like this? We were getting vibes. So I was like, there's something a little wrong for this picture. And with this picture, and at the same time, I was writing a little bit more for classical ensembles. So I kind of stopped playing a bit and started developing music with classical musicians who couldn't improvise, that had a more lyrical component, that was more readily, obviously lyrical, let's just say. And started writing a ton for classical ensembles, did really well with that stuff. And then started getting back into the jazz thing, doing collaborations like with Brad. I did a collaboration with Brad Mehldau and Kevin Hayes. And I did a record with Josh Redman, and started doing things back in the jazz world after, and combining all the cultures together.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about. So, talk about if you could, Brad, your connection with Brad. How did you came to know him? And
Well, Brad also was in West Hartford,
oh,
and he was which is where I went to school. He went to Hall High School as well.
oh
He was
wow,
2 years younger than I was. And we were the jazz police back in those days. And Brad came in, this young kid, 14 years old. He was like playing Grateful Dead tunes. It was just like, oh God, it was insufferable. So we gave him a lot of shit, and as a result, he's 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 always been really nice to me. You know how that is. We Brad was in New York with, and I was in New York. He was doing the new school, and I was kind of in my contemporary classical phase. So we weren't really crossing paths. But later, Kevin kind of brought the three of us together, and he was like, let's do something. And so I started like writing arrangements and things for them. And initially, the idea was to write arrangements of contemporary classical pieces, but like minimalist stuff for two pianos and for them to improvise. And so we had arrangements of like Arvo Pärt. We had arrangements of this piece by Henry Goretzky called the Symphony Number 3, very famous thing that has a 26-minute first movement, which is like a canon. It starts a very slow canon, starts in the double bass, and then goes in the cello, and it goes like way all the way up to this. So it's like going 26. There's like or there's like I don't know, I think there's maybe 12 lines of canon going at one time, and then it kind of slowly breaks down. Anyway, we did an arrangement of that with those guys, like with blowing and stuff. It was insane. We had Strauss Metamorphosen, but we weren't allowed to do some of that stuff. So then just wound up writing some originals. Kevin and Brad also have an original on that record, and we did Lonely Woman, and
Mhm.
that's how that record came together. And then we recorded it up at Mechanics Hall in Worcester, and we weren't sure how it was going to get put out. But I think once Brad heard the master, he's like, "Oh, I really want this on my label," so it came out on Nonesuch, and that was the beginning of my relationship with them.
Oh, cool. And then I've had Josh Redman was on this program a little while back.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, he was great. You know,
He's
it's such a humble guy.
yeah.
You know, almost too humble. You know, um, talk about your connection with him.
Well, Josh's humility is not warranted. I got connected to him through the Brad thing. I mean, I had known him when he was becoming famous. We were both, we knew each other from way back because Kevin was in his band,
Right.
and so I knew him. I had met him, and then we went in the initial monk competition that he won. I was there as a saxophone player.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So and then I talked to him there and hung out with him there a tiny bit, and then he blew up. But then he would still be around. And that quartet I mentioned with Larry and Kevin and Tom Rainey, we got a week at the Village Gate, surprisingly, and we were playing that music at the Village Gate, and Josh came down to check it out. So like we were always sort of like in vaguely in connection, and then. He had this residency at Wigmore Hall where he had some things he wanted to do, and he asked me if I would write something. And coincidentally, I was connected with this commissioning organization out in Seattle who commissioned this piece that I then wrote for him. And I have to say, Josh really he took it on. He learned that I wrote some ridiculously hard music for him,
Yeah.
and he learned he played the shit out of it. He acted as though he couldn't play it, but he played the shit out of it. And not only that, but he really improvised in a way that really fit the context of the music. It was brilliant what he did with my music. I was really really okay. It was next level, I would have to say. So I really enjoyed that, and we collaborated. We had a collaboration that stretched on for several years, doing that piece and other things in various contexts.
That's awesome. Cool. So what brings you to, how did you wind up in Paris? Or is that your permanent residency?
Well, as I said, my wife is French. We oscillate between Paris and New York.
Okay.
We have small kids, so the oscillation has been getting a little bit intense. So we're slowing down a little bit, and because of the education and different reasons, we're kind of more vibing with Paris right at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm the kind of person, I'm like a real New York person. Like I miss it when I'm not every day. I miss it when I'm not there. And every time I go back, I feel plugged in, like I'm like electric voltage going through my veins.
Mm, yeah.
I really consider myself a New Yorker.
Sure.
And with the internet, you can be based anywhere, especially as a composer. I can write, and then go show up, do whatever I wind up doing, and then come back. Like it doesn't really matter that much where I live.
Right. Right. Right.
So it works out. But I do miss New York. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is there currently a vibrant jazz scene in Paris?
There's a jazz scene. I'm not really particularly involved. But yes, there are some good musicians here. I just it's yeah, I'm just not that involved because it's like the straight ahead thing isn't my thing, and also, the guys that I know that play straight ahead, like Pete Bernstein, like the guys are so deep.
Right.
Kevin, that's my kind of that's going anywhere under that floor is tricky for me. So,
Sure.
but I would have to say I'm kind of just in my composer bubble. I'm super involved with the projects that I'm doing, and
Right. Right.
I don't connect that much with the jazz scene per se. I should.
It's only so much time, right?
That's the only issue. Yeah.
So talk about if you could, like any future projects that you're working on now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Uh, well, it's more like present projects at the moment because I just had a premiere of an opera that I wrote. That I just finished. I finished an opera. Actually, I finished it like in the beginning of last year, and we just had the first presentation of some of the materials live. I've been working on this piece. It's about James Joyce's daughter. James Joyce being the very famous writer, modernist writer, and his daughter being called Lucia Joyce, who was a dancer in her own right, but she kind of her life got derailed, and she exhibited signs of madness and was ultimately confined to an insane asylum for like the last 50 years of her life. So she had a rough life. Anyway, this is a this I'm really proud of this piece. It's a and we finally just got we just did a preliminary presentation of like about an hour's worth of the music. It's 2 hours total at the Irish Embassy in Paris. That just happened like this weekend, so that went really well. And we're doing it again in Dublin in 26 and talking about all these different places. Opera's a whole thing that's very different than jazz. And my wife is an opera director.
Oh, okay.
She's not a musician, but she directs. You know, like she thinks about the theatrical aspects of it.
Sure.
So I've been very involved in that scene progressively in the last 10 years.
Is
So
it the first opera you've written, or have you written other operas?
it's the first opera I've written. Although I worked on a I did a lot of work on another one that didn't get completed, which is like a kind of contemporary reworking of La Traviata, but set in New York City. And then there's another thing that might be happening similar than that to that in Paris that we might be doing for video, because I think that there's an interesting way of maybe making opera more talk to people in a more contemporary way. But you have to like rewrite the music and rewrite the words and rewrite everything, but you can keep the essence,
Sure.
or at
So
least some of the essence, you know.
you write the libretto and everything? It's all.
With regards to Lucia Joyce, this was a long-term project. I had a couple of different people uh, writing, but the main the main librettist is a guy called Spencer Matheson, who's a Canadian who I met in Paris. He's based here, and so and we hit it off, and he offered up this libretto, which I then over the years subsequent, because that was already like probably 12, 13 years ago, I tinkered with, elaborated, add sections of my own. So it's kind of like it's kind of put together by many people. Like I think a lot of films are and stuff like in the US these days.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So is it in French or English?
It's in English.
Okay.
It's in English. Yeah, yeah. It's in English, but since this family, so the Joyces were from Dublin, and but he went to Trieste actually when he like left Dublin early, went to Switzerland, Trieste, and landed in Paris. So they're kind of polyglot, and so there are some references to their polyglot nature. There's some parts that are in Italian and parts that are in French, but just like little parts. It's essentially it's in English. Yeah.
Cool. And what else? Anything else you want the people to
Oh
know?
yeah. So the next record coming out on EMP is going to be called Messages, and that's with this that's this thing that I wrote for saxophone quartet and jazz trio. And this actually was I originally wrote it for classical. Do you know about this project? I originally wrote it for classical. I initially wrote it for classical saxophone players and jazz rhythm section, but after COVID, I assembled a like group of old friends of mine, and we started doing it in New York. With I'm playing on it on soprano, and Steve Wilson's playing, uh, Potter's playing,
Sure.
and Ron Blake,
All right.
and then we have Ed Simon on piano, Collie Scott is playing bass, and EJ Strickland.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, great group.
So yeah, so it's a really fun band, and we played a bunch. We played at the DC Jazz Festival a couple years ago, and we played at Dizzy's for a couple of nights, and we are actually doing a run at Dizzy's this September 9th and 10th.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so that's coming up. Um, and I have some cool projects cooking in Paris with this great pianist. There is a great pianist here, jazz pianist called Yaron Herman, and he's got me he's pulling me into a bunch of his projects. He's got something for him and classical percussion trio, which is really sick because they play all the crazy instruments and stuff, and it's going to be beastly. So we're doing some stuff coming up with that. I'm also writing a concerto for him. And yeah, so I got a lot of stuff going on in all different kind of contexts, which is how I like it.
That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think we did the thing.
Well, thanks, man. I didn't get to hear about. So have you been in town the whole time?
So I live in New Jersey, like by the Jersey Shore. Kind of like
Oh,
in
so
Point
you're
Pleasant.
not
Yeah, I'm
where?
not like do you know Jersey? I guess you grew up in New York. So like the Jersey Shore, Point Pleasant,
Okay.
Belmar, Red
Nick?
Bank. Yeah, so a lot of what
Ah,
I do, I play a lot Red Bank, Asbury Park, Princeton, those the greater New Jersey area, and sometimes the city, but not as much anymore. It's just so hard to get into, you know.
right, right. Do you know Seth Abramson?
No.
Okay. All right. He was the AD, the artistic director of the Jazz Standard for many years.
Okay. Yeah,
And
no.
now he's like running jazz for the Gilmore Festival and doing a million things. But anyway, he's a Jersey guy. But
Okay.
I think a different kind of Jersey. He I want to say Montclair. If I get this wrong, he's going to
Yeah,
shoot.
yeah. I'm surprised. So for a while, I was in that area, the
Okay,
Montclair. But now since moved down this way.
nice. Well, that sounds like paradise, though.
You know, it's not bad. There's a lot of gigs. Not
Really,
not a lot of great gigs, but like a lot of jazz festivals, a lot of smaller clubs and restaurants and bars and shit.
that's great.
But yeah, so I'm doing a lot of playing. I'm maybe one of like four bass players who are kind of in that circuit around here.
Wow.
Yeah, and then some solo guitar and some guitar gigs as well. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, yeah. So it's that, and then I teach at a college over here,
Okay.
called Monmouth University. And the writing I do. I just finished a book on Ray Brown that just came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Wow. Let me check that out.
some writing for Downbeat and Jersey Shore Jazz. So a bunch of that kind of stuff.
I see. Okay. Right on. Yeah, we just had a chat with Bill Mulkowski.
Oh, sure. Wow, that must have been cool.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, he's deep in it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's one of those. That's cool. Yeah, so when you're in New York, let me know. I'll come watch you play if I'm around.
Oh man, cool. Well, we're doing the Dizzy's thing in September, not September 9th and 10th. That's the next time around. So
Excellent, cool. Yeah, so knowing that, I could try to propose an article around that. So the one magazine I write for, specifically only is interested in people who are in New York and in New Jersey performing, which is everybody really. So, um, but they try to pattern it around there. So
I
yeah,
see.
that'd be
Oh, that'd
cool.
be cool.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Sure,
Well,
man.
best of luck with everything. I really enjoy the music. I got to dig into some of the other projects, but yeah, this one was great.
Thanks so much, man. I'm really glad you like it. Yeah, I would have thought that this is gonna do well. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. I think it's just getting started. I think it might have some legs. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, well, how do you promote something like since you're doing it now, it's kind of you, right? Doing it. So how do you promote it?
Yeah, well, that's really the essence of EMP, what we're thinking about. And there are people out there that have like a little bit of we're planning podcasts and different things for EMP, and there are people that have like some voodoo, some like internet voodoo, especially with Spotify. And in fact, there's this singer I met who's an opera singer. We met on a different project that I just finished, a big song cycle. Uh, anyway, he's gonna sing. There's four singers involved, and he's one of them. But this guy, like, really, he has a side business doing this for artists, and I think that I mean, you have to kind of pay attention to these things in this day and age, and I don't. I'm not really like a social media person at all, but I think through the production company, I want to establish that presence rather than being individual. And my other thing is, I've heard of labels that have like called their artists like, "Hey, you're not posting enough on social media." Like, to me, it should be the opposite of that. And I mean, one thing that I would love to offer, this is again like down the line, but is like a service to like do social media for the artists, or at least like handle some of it so they don't have to like feel that pressure, and it can free them up. And so we're developing a kind of pipeline approach to it so that you can kind of still have a presence out there in the world, you
Yeah.
know, in on if the world being those social media channels. So we're developing that, we're developing, the YouTube thing, and we're developing the what do they call it? DSP, whatever, the digital platforms
Right.
thing. And those
Right.
are those are part of the things that we're like really focused on. So yeah, so I have this guy that I'm working with, and we're gonna see what the results are that he gets.
That's cool. Are you familiar with Joe Brent? Do you know Joe?
No, I don't.
He was a phenomenal mandolin player,
Oh,
and violin player, and kind of very similar in a lot of the things you described, where a lot of different projects similar to what you were mentioning. But he has a label called Europa Records,
huh.
and he's doing a lot of like what you just kind of mentioned. In fact, my last project was on his thing,
Oh,
and he's pretty good about the promotion and stuff. It's but similar, like artist owned, and
yeah.
he brings in other artists as well, and offers them a way to sort of get your music out there, but also to promote it. You know,
Yeah, yeah, there has to be that path. If not, then that's really the point. I mean, because the idea is to have your music be heard by people.
yeah, no, it's crazy, but that's the way everyone like Kurt Rosenwinkel was on. Same thing. He's got his own label now, and he's
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Definitely. Kurt does his own stuff, so that's cool. And I think that like also, we're gonna really experiment with like breaking the rules and like this is a very my record's very short. It's not shorter than Clifford Brown or Max Roach. I think that's the if you're not shorter than Clifford Brown, Max Roach, then you're cool for record length. I've thought a lot about record length. The Messages one, we're gonna go 63 minutes just to be crazy. But also like releasing singles at random times. I have a lot of electronic music I did with this great electronic musician who's also a partner of mine called Harold Bott, and like we have some really cool stuff in that medium. And you don't really have to. You can kind of really do whatever you want. There's no rules until you get well known.
yeah,
But
yeah.
before you're well known, you can kind of do whatever you want. So I'm enjoying that since we're just getting started.
All right, man. Well, you always have a platform here. It was
Thank
really
you so much, Jay. I really appreciate your time, man.
all right. Take care. Best of luck.